And
okay, play live.
hold up. Wow.
Right, we have 2 viewers. So we can now actually start the live show. Rachel, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
I mute myself so that my thing doesn't blare, and then it's like derp.
Yeah.
I have like a 3-second memory. And that's a terrible way to introduce this live show. This is Joe and I. We do a monthly live show about our favorite short fiction from the past month. This one has been delayed by a couple more weeks due to the hecticness of life, but we are here to talk about our favorite science fiction and fantasy stories from May and a couple weeks of June. Even though we completely failed to use our SFF Shorts hashtag to tell you about stories before the live show, we want to remind you guys that that is an option. If you use the SFF Shorts hashtag on Twitter, you can tweet us recommendations for stories. You can see our recommendations as we're reading things through the month, the things that we will eventually probably talk about here, and keep up to date with us on that sort of stuff. So I'm Rachel. If you don't know me, my channel is Colonati. You're here on my channel. And Joe, you want to introduce yourself?
Yep. I'm Joe. My channel is FinalBlowJoe. I'm a SFF guy and talk about more heavily science fiction at the moment than fantasy.
Yep. So where did we read stories from this month? I'll let you go first.
For me, it was Clarkesworld, both May and some of June. I haven't read all of June's actually, most of it. Uncanny, which is the main June one. Tour.com, and a little bit from Lightspeed. And I think that's about it actually this time.
Yeah, I think I pretty much read the same thing as you. April and May, Lightspeed, May and June, Clarkesworld. I finished the June issue of Clarkesworld, and some Apex, Uncanny, and a few tour stories. I did read Asimov's April and May issue, so pretty similar. Oh, let me check the chat. Oh, Mark says the video doesn't seem to be switching between us. That's not good.
No.
Is it still not switching? Sadly, if it's not switching, I don't know how to fix it.
It's pretty odd. It's getting locked on one of us. It is not ideal.
It may be something that I accidentally did. Oh, it's good now? Okay. Somebody magically fixed that. Okay, we can move on.
Right.
Thank you
That's
guys
our
for
fir-
mentioning that.
Yeah, and that's their first technical problem so far.
I know. We've been so lucky.
Right, well,
Okay, so before we went off on that tangent, I think we confirmed we basically read the same stuff this past month, and we're going to be talking about a lot of stories from Uncanny Magazine's issue 10, the May-June issue. So, spoilers, the takeaway here is go read Uncanny.
yeah, pretty much.
And with that said, I think that's an excellent segue to have you talk about your first story, Joe.
Okay, I'm going to just switching over. Change something. Right, the first thing that I'm going to talk about is "You're Surely Drowned Here If You Stay" by Alyssa Wong. This was from Uncanny. I didn't double check that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Uncanny issue 10, May, June. I really like this one. It was. I'm going to check right. It had a Western feel to it. It's about a boy with odd powers, or unusual powers, not really sure how to describe it, and he lives at the local whorehouse, basically, you know, and his power is that he can sort of communicate with the dead and in a really unusual way.
Mm-hmm.
And these group of, is it from the other side of America? They visit and hear about his weird powers, ability, and they want to use his powers for their own reasons. And he doesn't like it because his powers are not under his full control, and he doesn't really understand them himself. And it ends in a really interesting way. I can't remember the exact details of the ending of this one, actually, for some reason.
I actually reread this one and one of your other stories last night, and I liked it a lot more this time. I know I mentioned a while ago when I read it that it's a fantasy western, and
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of westerns. But when I reread it, I was paying more attention to what seems like that American Indian mythology or the feel of the Native American mythology behind it. I was trying to figure out this time who the boy is because he has this power and he's talking about his mother and his father. And I figured actually that his father was human, but his mother is the desert, which explains like that feeling of dryness and the death and the decay and the bones and everything. And he can like he starts to like bring some bones to life at the beginning of the story, doesn't he?
Yeah, I can really minor little things.
Yeah.
And it builds.
So I think part of the backstory of this that I didn't catch the first time around is that his father, who had some of these abilities too, who's like beloved of the desert, was killed by the people who lived there because they were afraid of him. And then his mother, the desert, was trying to punish the local people. Like she caused a mining cave in or something like that. And so there are these dead people in the mine. And then that group of outsiders comes in and wants him because he can communicate with the dead.
Rescue them and get them out.
Yeah. And the whole thing about bones in the desert and the preacher man who's kind of like a vulture, I think he actually is like a vulture spirit, was very reminiscent of Native American folktales this time. I ended up really liking it.
Yeah, you got there's spirit elements there of both, the vulture, the desert. Is he acting on behalf of the desert or on some other sort of third party ulterior motive or on its own? And why and obviously the way the sort of vulture guy interacts with the boy is like really weird as well.
I thought he was a villain, but is he really a villain?
Yeah.
Is he?
Well, you think so to start with, definitely, but then does he sort of evolve into something in the middle? He's not bad, he's not good, he's like a grey character.
Yeah, well, he's the vulture. He literally stinks of decay, and he seems bad. But on the other hand, vultures, they eat dead things because that's how they survive. That's their nature.
Yeah.
So is it bad? Well, in one context or another, it changes.
Yeah, and I just loved about the writing style of it, the way she sort of gets all the parts of it just make perfect sense and really do work well together. And there's no sort of odd elements anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Don't quite fit in, it's all the mythology of the vulture guy and the bones and all that. It fits into this world really well.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest testaments to the writing of this one is that while it has a Western setting and it evokes that setting, it never seems cliche or stereotypical, like especially in the dialogue, which is I really hate the cliches of Westerns. So it's like spot on.
And overall, I rated this quite highly, I believe. Yeah, I gave this 5.
Ooh.
To be honest, I'm not thinking about it in retrospect now. I probably wouldn't give it quite 5 now. I'd give it like 4.5 or something. But
Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I would say as well. Yeah.
but it's good writing, good story, and the ideas in it are familiar but not over familiar.
Mm-hmm. Paul in the chat says that he has a crush on Alyssa Wong. I think a lot of people do. Anybody see her at the Nebula Awards in that amazing dress? It was awesome.
What was the name of it? It was, well, actually it is in the description now. It was "You'll surely drown here if you stay." All the we'll link it after the live show, and we'll add all the links in the description. Right, that's about it for that one.
Okay. I'm going to stick with Uncanny then. For my next one, I'm going to jump ahead to another story from the same issue as Alyssa Wong's. This is The Sound of Salt and Sea by Kat Howard. I'm actually going to read part of the setting for this because I think it's like just tells you exactly what this is like. The setting is described like this: the last day of October, the first of the 3 dead days where the drowned bells ring, and Far Island rises back above the waters, and our dead return to us. We give our dead to the waters, and once a year, the waters bring them back. Just awesome. So this story is about this whole community who their dead return to them from this island for 3 days every year. They visit them, they walk out of the sea, they go to the coffee shop and talk to people and stuff. And at the end of the 3 days, there is this like herd of wild bone horses that are supposed to round up all the ghosts to make them return when their time is done. And every year, those horses have a human living rider who kind of also keep them in check. And the main character of the story is a woman who is going to be their rider in this year. She was supposed to have been in a previous year, but like this guy who is now dead got in her way. I don't know how to explain it better than that. I don't know if you understood this story differently, Joe.
No, it's a bit of an odd one, really, to describe in that way.
Yeah. The setting is really cool.
Yeah.
And the characters and those bone horses and the idea of the ghosts coming out of the sea and the island rising up and then rising down. That's awesome. What actually happens in the story with what the character is doing, I have a harder time pinning down the plot of this one. It's still a great story, though. This is another one that I reread. The first time I read it, I really loved the atmosphere, and it is beautifully written. And it has it has some of these elements of fantastical stories that I'm getting tired of. Stories that are all about bone and blood and the smell of the sea and the wildness of nature and that colliding with those are elements that are used a lot, and I'm starting to feel like there's stereotypes, but the way that Howard tells this story, it's not like I don't feel like she's overly romanticizing or making these things into overblown myths. They're just kind of a reality. And it's interesting that this story feels more grounded in the present day because there are some mentions of things like coffee shops. This isn't medieval times or anything. It's kind of the contemporary world with this one strange thing going on, and everybody acts like it's normal. So I really like that. It's kind of beautiful and heartbreaking, and there's a bit of that feeling of a sacrifice that rights a mistake made in the past. But when I reread it the other day, I didn't really understand the ending and what was really happening. So
yeah, well, the thing I thought was interesting to start with was obviously I find it creepy, obviously, because there's the dead come back once a year and roam the town, that's kind of disturbing. You don't really want, if somebody dies, you want to let them die, not have them, boogie down the road and wanting to have a coffee with you. I'd be like, and have a chat, a bit freaky. And obviously then the horses, which are it's kind of like basically like the driving wind that blows, and clears the area.
mm-hmm.
And then obviously the red ribbons.
Yeah.
That they put over the horse's neck, they sort of throw it over, and that's how they sort of not tame them, but are able to even go near them without the horse ripping them apart. And then you become not part of the horse, but kind of like the guiding influence of the horse. Is it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they accept you as their rider, and they won't hurt you if you approach them the right way. But like the ribbon and everything.
Yeah, I assume that's the case of that's meant to be sort of like the human sort of element and the human sort of compassionate side of it. Somebody has to avoid them, so the horses just sweep up the spirits of the dead, not everybody living and dead. And that's that's basically the control system almost for the weird horses and the sort of sweeping.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that there are quite a few things in the story that could be really scary and really dangerous. Like I said, who really wants to have these ghosts come back and interact with you? But the ghosts and the horses and the whole situation isn't really a bad one. It isn't necessarily a scary one unless it starts to get out of control.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of people in the town treat this as a day to get back with their loved ones, to talk with them. It's not super creepy or scary.
No.
And it kind of, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of the attitudes towards, what is it, Dia de los Muertos, that tradition of, dead bodies aren't scary, and you bring them out sometimes, and you bring your family members to your events and stuff. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, good idea. It's just like, don't fear death. I mean, yes, death. Nobody wants to die, but it happens to everybody. It's without fail. So sort of allow it in your life as such.
Yeah.
For what it is.
Okay, it makes me want to really compare the treatment of death and dead people in this story to, I think, one of the stories that you're going to talk about. Do you have the Aliette de Bodard story on your list?
I'm pretty sure I do.
Okay. I don't want to like
Yeah.
force you to talk about that next, but
No,
I just suddenly
no,
made the connection in my head.
No, I'll talk about that next then. Well, that's pretty much that story finished with then, isn't it? Unless we've got any questions. Nope. Okay. I'll go on to the that one. Right. I'm going to talk about Lullaby for Lost World by Aliette de Bodard.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the pronouncement name. But I thought his name was a bit like quite. This is from Tor.com. It's released on June the 1st, so it's only just over 2 weeks old now. And this is my first ever thing that I've read by de Bodard. I've never read anything by her before.
Mm-hmm.
I thought this one was a really good start, frankly. It makes me want to read more by her. It's dark fantasy. It's from a first person's perspective, well, from the start, and it's about a young girl who has recently died, but she can still talk to certain people that are living, but it depends who they are. I mean, she can talk to her mother, and there is a weird sort of creepy feel to it, and there's the particular guy who may or may not be responsible for her death. You're never entirely sure. You think he is, but you're not sure. And he wants more people like her because kind of he feeds off their energy.
Is she like a sacrifice as part of a spell? Like I felt like she had been killed
Yeah,
as part of a sacrifice
and he's
to
feeding off her
protect.
energy.
Yeah, he feeds off the energy, but it's like a protection for his home or something. Like she's supposed
Yeah,
to. I think her mother like gives her up to do this because it's supposed to like benefit everybody there.
yeah, that's
It,
all. The village sacrifice.
yeah, it turns out to not quite be what people thought it was.
I know, and I really like this one. I mean, there's several things that I thought were quite interesting. Obviously, one was the perspective because it starts off first person and indeed it ends first person. But at the start, though, you are, as a reader, you are her. You don't know anything about it. You're seeing the world. I mean, it's actually it's written as in you, as in you look up and see this, and then as it goes out, it still does that. But obviously, you are aware of that it's this girl Charlotte whose eyes you're looking through, or like a mask. And I think that's a quite interesting mix. It's almost like a double first person. It's still first person, but not exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the whole sort of connection with the living and the dead, and again the use of colour in it yet again, which which links up. Actually, thinking about it, I mean, actually, when I'm reading this, the thing I thought of was weirdly enough, Schindler's List film. Because where there's the girl in the red dress in that one scene. It's what really well known, and
I know the scene. I haven't watched the movie, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, and it's kind of like that. It's like there's only certain colours that are allowed in the book. Almost, it's like the book's just black, white, and grey, and then just very select colours here and there for
Mm-hmm.
a dramatic sort of effect and emotional connection, which I thought was really quite interesting.
Yeah. That does make me think about how vivid the story seems, and it does. It's like her vengeance, her how she's feeling this emotion is this color throughout the story that just builds. You could feel it bubbling up.
Yeah, and just and obviously the fact that she communicated the dead again links to obviously what we just talked about and I don't know, it's quite. And actually, now that you've talked about that one, actually, I didn't realise the connection between these two stories actually until you mentioned it. But they both got that same connection. They're both right into death, but also life, and they've got the colour connections and quite a few odd connections between them.
Mm-hmm. This is one that presents the death in this one is presented as more gruesome and it's very dark. I mean, it's grisly and it's basically murder in the story and vengeance from beyond the grave. The anger associated with that, which is, like death turned into the horrible thing, whereas Cat Howard's story is more you've peacefully gone on and we can come back and just go on with our lives type of thing, and we're not mad at each other. But this is the Bodard story is like when it all goes wrong.
Yeah, and obviously in that it's about actual the guy's actually essentially killing them. It's about murder actually as well. He wants their energy, their spirit, their whatever you want to call it, essence, whatever. The other one is just about connection between the living and the dead.
Mm-hmm. I think you like this one a little bit more than I did. I think it was well written, and I like the imagery in it, but it was a little bit too bloody for me.
Yeah, well, we've got an interesting honourable mention about it.
I liked it though, and I think this is, if it's your first story by her, that you will like her other stories. She writes fantasy and science fiction, and I've read her science fictional stories. She has like a universe that she writes connected stories in, and those are pretty good.
I will look into it when I'm not reading so many other things. Haven't got any questions about that?
I don't see anything.
I think that's about it for that story.
Okay.
Can we talk about the next one?
Yes. My next one is a very short story. It's Hungerford Bridge by Elizabeth Hand, which is a reprint from 2009. It's in the May 2016 issue of Lightspeed. And it's like really short. I'm not kidding. It's really short. It's less than 4,000 words.
Yeah.
It's almost more like a vignette than an actual story with a plot. There isn't an obstacle to be overcome. It's simply that a man's friend comes to visit him in London, takes him to a park, shows him something, and then says, "You can't tell anybody else about this. Like, we're the only two people in the world who know about it, and keep it that way."
Yeah.
And while there isn't much more to it than that, I liked it so much because it was like a timeout from all of these other stories about war and death and revenge and just very intense topics. This is just two people sharing a little spark of wonder, a fantastical moment together, and also kind of about knowing something and not being able to tell people. Sometimes things are more precious if they're a secret and nobody else knows. It's like their power becomes diluted if too many people know. And so you have to keep secrets. Though I think there's one point in the story where I say, we think we're the only two people who know. We won't ever talk about it with other people, but it's possible everybody in the world knows.
Yeah.
And they're all really good at keeping secrets.
Yeah. I mean, I like the aspect of it just being, so if you share certain things, by definition, if you sort of share them too much, they lose the power of what they are, and meaning, because obviously then people will start discussing them and, you know, sort of dissecting them too much and really getting into them too much, and that's not, so certain things don't need it and don't, and actually really shouldn't have that done to them. Sort of best to just sort of leave them alone and just observe on their own.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of think why people have problems with putting things in museums or like animals in zoos. You want to take it out of its environment and stick it in this artificial construct to preserve it, to make it accessible to other people. But it stops being real at that point.
Yeah.
It's just a thing in a place, and it's not amazing anymore.
No, it's, yeah, by changing it and observing it, you're changing it what it is.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested in what other people think about this story because it's so short and so little very happens in it. I just want to know whether people actually like this and what people think it's about, because I had to think for quite a while about what I thought it was actually about below the surface. And I still am not entirely sure.
Yeah, I mean, when I first read it, I only read it the other day. I started with, I was a bit like, well, is that it? And I didn't quite get it for a while. I was a bit like, okay, that's not, I wasn't really that impressed. After a while, I got to like it more actually after an hour or two, and after I actually give it a bit of thought and realise, you know, what that idea of, you know, observing and changing what you're observing actually meant.
For person who asked in the chat, the story we're talking about is Hungerford Bridge by Elizabeth Hand from the May 2016 issue of Lightspeed. So read it and then tell me what you think. I don't have much more to say about this one than that. It's like a little curiosity of a story that you can chew over for a while.
Yeah, it's very short, so it really isn't a lot you could say. I mean, I think it's probably about the shortest short story I've actually read this time around.
Yeah, it's not flash fiction, but
No.
Yeah. Okay, you want to do another one of yours?
I'll do Ye Highlands and Ye Lowlands by Seanan and McGuire. This was from Uncanny issue 10, May and June. And this is science fiction, and I enjoyed this one because it's kind of more of a fun, although the dark ending science fiction story. It's scientists create wormhole technology, basically, you know, think of Stargates, and it's only to this one planet, and we send some probes through. The probes discover some weird little worm-like aliens that sort of wobble about. That sound almost like sort of puppet aliens, basically. I mean, they sound like, so, yeah, you almost make like almost like sock puppets, practically. I mean, that's the idea I got from them. And it's all a misunderstanding between the word hello. Hello, because of the atmosphere, hello sounds very different to them than it does to us, and it's basically a disaster for mankind, which is kind of unfortunate because, you know, after all, it's only saying hello. Or at least that's what you think. I mean, I just like this because it's got obviously scientific technology and you know, wormholes and that sort of thing, which I always like. It's got the aliens in it who kind of both are just really good because they sound so peculiar. Because, I mean, like I said, they really do. At least to me, I couldn't help thinking they were basically sock puppets. You know, somebody, you know, on the other end of this little probe on this alien planet, almost like a whole type of sock puppets running around. And yet what they do to mankind is, well, horrific and extremely unpleasant. I mean, you know, people just die.
But I don't I didn't feel a sense of blame. I didn't feel like the
No,
aliens were evil. There's a genuine misunderstanding.
yeah,
And the aliens try to double check and triple check, and they're like, do you really mean this thing? And
yeah,
we're like, yes, of course. Hi.
yeah. Well, the kids say, really? Hello?
Do you
Don't you?
understand what you are saying to us?
Yep,
Um,
and we're like, and we're just nodding back, saying, yes, hello. And they're like,
yeah.
you know, because obviously, it's like, I mean, it's like basically genocide to it. And then, like, you know, and they have to have a little conference, and then, you know, it's like, well, you know, these poor people, you know, they're asking us to do this horrific, god awful thing, but, you know, yeah, you've got to sort of be kind, so
They're
we'll have to
so
do the awful thing.
insistent. How can we tell them no?
Yeah. You know, the poor people are suffering so badly, obviously, that's what they're asking us. It's just, it's just, I don't know, it's sort of dark in that, in the one way, but not really, and it's actually got a lot of comedy in it. And it's just really fun story, actually, it really was. I really enjoyed this one. I mean, it's certainly the most light-hearted of all these stories by quite some way. All the others were generally very dark and macabre for the most part. This was light, other than the, you know, I mean, yes, mass death, but that, I mean, that's almost beside the point.
I think it does actually have some pretty heartbreaking emotional moments in it.
Yeah,
I did like, there was some funny bits when the scientists are talking, for example, like in the pre-disaster era, which was like, yeah, Heinlein reference. That was funny. Um, I guess I focused a lot on this one was that the repeated phrase in the story is everything has consequences,
yeah,
even science has consequences, which it okay, the bit where she's saying science also has consequences, but we
yeah,
tend to think it doesn't, was a very interesting point. Um, Especially given the disaster in the story, which essentially comes from, I think, a mishandling of a scientific endeavor, turning it more into um, a publicized and entertainment adventure. They actually say this isn't a science experiment, it's pitched as an adventure. And then they make a mistake. There's this sort of
yeah,
hubris with communicating with an alien species where we just dive straight in and don't think about the consequences.
yeah. I mean, the whole consequence thing, I mean, that's actually from the very first page. So, you know, in every other field and area of human existence, you know, if you were to do something along these lines, there would be, you know, repercussions, and there'd be, you know, people wanted to know, you know, like, you know, we've got to learn from our mistakes. With science, it's kind of not like allowable to make horrific mistakes as long as you learn one little thing. Doesn't really matter what else happens.
Yeah, and see, saying in science that there's no mistake, no matter what result you get, it's a result.
Yeah,
Well, there's a consequence to good results and bad results. It goes beyond just is there a result.
yeah,
They're going to be those ripples of repercussions throughout the rest of the world, and we're primed to think that those are always good consequences.
yeah. Cause and effect, and as I said, it's light-hearted and fun, and I liked the aliens. I really did.
Mm.
I can't. These are the best little aliens I've come across in a book in ages. Frankly, that I mean that would be my lasting memory of this book. Just the little aliens in it. Frankly,
Yeah.
you know,
The one
wormhole
thing
technology is in lots of books, but the little aliens are really, you know, unique.
yeah. The only other thing that I want to know about this story is what the exact prompt it was for, because it tells you at the end of the story
Yeah,
that it was written to a prompt that Seanan McGuire was given, and apparently it was an amazing prompt. And
Yeah.
I want to know what it was exactly, because the title, Ye Highlands and Ye Lowlands, it refers to a song or a poem which begins, and one of the characters mentions it and everything.
Yeah.
And so I kind of wonder if the prompt has something to do with that.
I mean, I would doubt somehow that the prompt is hello somehow, because that would be a remarkably inventive and rich to open prompt, frankly.
Yeah.
If it's just, one word, that's not likely, that wouldn't be very helpful. I think that's about it actually for that one, isn't it?
Okay. I'll go with my next one then. My next one is A Dead Djinn in Cairo by P. Djeli Clark, Djeli. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. This is a story from Tor.com from May 2016, and it is a pretty fun alternate steampunk 1912 version of Cairo in Egypt with a female detective who is a really sharp dresser. So the summary of the plot is that Cairo is infused with the otherworldly. The Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments, and Supernatural Entities investigate disturbances between the mortal and the possibly divine. And what starts off as an odd suicide case for special investigator Fatma leads her through the city's underbelly as she encounters rampaging ghouls, saucy assassins, clockwork angels, and a plot that could unravel time itself. It covers a lot of ground in a pretty short amount of space. This is a story that kind of
short.
Well, okay, it's not a super short story, but it's not like.
Actually, I think it's the longest short story of it, actually.
Yeah. So it's a steampunk detective story about a dead Djinn is discovered, and they unravel this plot to do bad things with time, and there are angels who might not actually be angels, and this female detective is tracking things down. It was just I like detective stories. I like mystery plots like this, and it was just fun. I thought the main character was a very interesting person. It's interesting to imagine a woman who pretty extravagantly, flamboyantly dresses as a man and is a police investigator with men in Cairo. Because it goes completely against our conceptions of what it's even like to be a woman in the modern day there versus, in 1912.
Yes, not.
Yeah. So I just thoroughly enjoyed it. I loved the setting. It was very cool steampunk, and the whole thing reminded me a lot of the sheer joy of reading a Gale Carricker plot. Just your humans with special abilities and the supernatural entities bouncing around, harebrained adventures running through the city streets type of thing. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And Paul in the chat. Yes, I hope it's also going to be a series of stories. It's set up that I think it could easily be a series. So cross fingers. I know the author has written other things, but this seems to be a different story from what she's. I think it's a she's done in the past. So.
Yeah. I mean, you can certainly do a lot more with this world. The world's been set up in a really interesting way with obviously the Djinns and being sort of clockwork, steampunk sort of angels and things.
Yeah, there's a whole history implied in the story, which just there's so much you could do with.
It's just a fun story. Well, this was the most, well, I would say simple, but it was the most sort of straightforward story. It was a straightforward detective story from start to finish.
Yeah, exactly.
ultra deep, you know, meaningful, emotional things you have to consider or anything. It was these events have happened. She's a detective, and she's got to figure out what's happened and why, and stop people getting killed, basically.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nice sort of change, basically, from many of the other short stories, which are generally extremely deep and lately seems to be extremely dark.
Mm-hmm.
This was a bit more light and easy to read.
Yeah. I think that's it for that one. So you want to do yours?
The last one would be The Snow of Jinyang by Zhang. This is from Clarkesworld 117, which is the current June issue of Clarkesworld. This is, well, the genre is actually kind of weird because I thought it was historical fiction at first. Then it turns into time travel. It also turns into sort of like a multiverse, you know, parallel world story as well, while still feeling like historical fiction, which is a really weird combination, but it really does work. It's set in China. You've got a time tourist, I think he's classed as, goes into this period of China. His fuel, I believe, runs out, and there's a little bit of damage to the method he does. He manages to fix damage, but he doesn't have any fuel, so he's got to obtain a very unique fuel in this time zone and becomes involved in this period in history. Obviously, it's a multiverse theory, so there's no paradox as well, which I thought that was interesting to start because I was expecting them to go into the whole sort of paradox theory and explain how it's not a paradox, but then it works out there's actually it's time travel also into multiverses, so you can avoid paradox, which is a nice one. And he basically gets involved too much, and it doesn't go well for him. And I don't know, I just really like this one.
I think this is the only one of our favorites that I really disagree with you on.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I think it's interesting. So my opinion on the story, why I just didn't like it too much, I think connects to something you said about how kind of weird the story is. The setup of it is. It is a pseudo fantasy, mostly science fiction, time travel story set in a historical time period. And because a lot of non-Chinese people don't know this history, a lot of the story doesn't make sense. And yet, it is in its structure extremely similar to a lot of works like Naomi Novik's Temeraire series is an alternate version of the Napoleonic Wars, which a lot of people are very familiar with the rudimentaries of that part of history. Add a time travel element to the Temeraire books, and you would have a Western version of Zhang Ran's story. But I couldn't get it. I think there were so many fun, interesting things happening in the story that I simply did not pick up on because I didn't know the history, and I thought the historical backbone given to you in it is kind of boring.
Yeah, I mean, I did think that you almost try to put there's almost too much in one story almost, I think. Even I would have preferred it to be longer or a slightly different plot, but you know, and then make several short stories out of it or something. Maybe you could have done, you know, like a series of short stories.
As an entire novel with a bit more time to show people investigating what's going on up until the point where it's revealed to them, that would have perhaps made it more It did have those wonderful nuggets of future inventions
Yeah, and
in this ancient China. Oh, you know, like I think a flashlight is actually called a lightsaber at one point,
yeah,
which made me laugh. That was so great.
yeah. Well, especially as there was actually. I'm not sure if it was. It's just me reading too much into it. But one of the characters is wearing some sort of like long robe type thing. So it's like obviously I thought Jedi's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one of the characters. He's not a character that has a flashlight, well, a lightsaber, but there is a character who wears a robe and flashlights are lightsabers. So it's just like a very minor reference, like combining the two, a Jedi. I don't know. It could just be me linking things that aren't even meant to be linked. But I thought that was a weird little reference.
Yeah, those tidbits were the fun parts. That's funny.
And just the way he keeps putting all this. I mean, the internet. I love that.
Oh, okay. The description of the internet was so
Brilliant.
interesting.
Oh, I loved it.
I had never thought so much about how you would make a keyboard in ancient China when you have the Chinese system of writing rather than a limited set of symbols for each letter. It's
Yeah.
infinitely more complicated.
Yeah. But start with, I was a bit puzzled because I thought, well, hang on. I mean, I know he brought some technology into this time period, but you kind of brought back electrical power, then obviously computer technology, and then the internet with all that goes along with it, and then you just find basically it's like you know, and it's not obviously it's through wires, and it's more like kind of like a internet version of Morse code, basically, kind
Yeah.
of.
It's the internet version of tying two cans together with a piece of
Yes,
string and shouting
that's
at
it.
each other.
Yeah, exactly. Just a whole lot of cans.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I love that, especially when you actually find out how it works and you explain, like, yeah, two people can talk and then use this like grid mechanism which connects a whole group of people together, and that's how you have basically like an actual website, since the equivalent of a website and a forum.
Yeah.
I mean, I just thought it was like really cleverly done, and I really wasn't expecting that. All the other technology, yeah, the sort of minor weapons and all the sort of day-to-day technology, but having internet in this way, I just it was a real nice surprise.
Mm.
Obviously, the way it worked was frankly brilliant and funny.
This is something I've noticed about the way that science and technology is written about in these translated Chinese stories in Clarkesworld is these stories often have very explicit, lengthy passages about how scientific research is done or how this piece of technology works. Like they explain it all and then how it fits into the story. And I just think that the way that they do it is subtly different from more Western stories, I guess. Um, I often wonder if it's just that their way of viewing the value and the point of these things in a story is different from our own.
Yeah, good well, mate.
But
This is just overall really fun. Again, funny because the internet part, I really it's worth reading if nothing else just for that.
mhm.
Um, I yeah, a ancient China version of the internet. Be like a 1,000+ character keyboard. I mean, I do not want to type on a keyboard with 1,000 keys on it, and that's not fun.
Yep.
Um, I think that's about it really for that one.
Okay. So mine will be the last one that we really go into. We're getting close to an hour.
Yep.
So my last one is A Good Home by Karin Lowachee. This is from the newest issue of Lightspeed. It's issue 73, June 2016, which happens to be the People of Color Destroy Science Fiction issue for people who enjoy Lightspeed's SF Destroy fantasy series. It's pretty fun. I've just started reading this. This is actually the first story I read from that issue, and it was really awesome. It's about a human man, a veteran of this war, who after the war adopts a traumatized soldier android from a veterans shelter, and brings him home, gives him a place, kind of helps him recuperate mentally and emotionally, while his neighbors and his mother and these people are asking him, why would you do this? Why do you care about what this android is feeling? Isn't he dangerous? Why do you have him here around our children? And it's very clearly a story about how you treat veterans, how you think about them, how you think about people who come back from war and they have visible disabilities. The main character, the man named Tan, he has spinal injury and he's in a wheelchair. So, when he talks to his neighbor, there's a whole passage about expecting his neighbor to look at him and treat him in a certain way because of his disability. And then the PTSD and the trauma, and this android chooses not to speak, and why he won't speak. And this story warmed my heart a lot. It was kind of sad and a little bit slow, but it's about a man who has the compassion to bring someone into his own home and take care of him and find a common ground with him, which I think is the thing that a lot of us won't do. We say we sympathize with people who have these problems, but we say it's somebody else's job to take care of them. And the story says, no, actually, it's not. You can do it if you want to, and you will have to deal with those people who tell you that you're crazy for doing it.
Yeah, this was an interesting one, and obviously really quite poignant, and obviously relates to a lot of modern, things. With how he's an android, so he's obviously not really human, but he still is, because obviously he's meant to be like advanced, and we should still, just because he's not quite like us, we should still treat him as a person, because he fought for our country, our life. So it doesn't matter about the stupid differences that the male may not be. It's still
it's about responsibility. Yeah. We made these androids. We had to give them the emotions and everything that will allow them to be traumatized so that they could actually function and not be crazy homicidal maniacs. And then when they come back, you have to deal with the consequences of what you just did.
Yeah. You can't just train soldiers, send them off to war, and then expect them to come back and be the same. The war will change who you are, because obviously your body is by definition. So you've got to accept that somebody will be changed afterwards, and try to help them to adjust in society with their new way of looking at things. Just acceptance, basically, the stories. Accepting people for what they are, and not discriminating based on just because they've been trained to be these super merciless soldiers. They weren't. They only did it because they felt they needed to, or in the case of the android, he was presumably designed to do it. But yeah, you've got a powerful one. This one.
I find myself more and more enjoying finding those stories about people who are accepting and tolerant and do the right thing, even when social pressure would say that they shouldn't. I find stories like that to be quite powerful and inspirational.
I'm just reading the comments.
Oh.
Chris has read the short story. Sort of made me think. Which short story is that again?
Hungerford Bridge.
Oh yeah, that was it.
Yeah, the Elizabeth Hand story.
Sort of made me think of John Foley's Little Big. That's cute.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. So, as a statement about how man can spoil his surroundings, I get that in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that kind of connects to what we were saying before about how you can take that thing and do something with it and mess everything up, or you could just admire it in its natural habitat.
Yeah.
And you've read Little Big, right, Joe?
Yeah. Really. Last year, I think it was.
Mm.
Yeah, it wasn't my favourite book.
I really loved Little Big, and I really need to read more by John Crowley.
Yeah, I want to read more by him, just not that, because frankly, I had no idea what was going on. I was just like, what? You know, it was just, frankly, I was confused the entire book. I mean, I think that's basically my entire description for the book. You know, I liked the writing style, but I had absolutely no idea what was going on, who anybody was, and I don't know, it just confused me, which is kind of unusual because we normally like long, complicated plot lines, but that did not work for me that time at all. It just really confused me.
It's been about 2 years since I read it, and I remember it as a multi-generational story about a family affected by their relationship with the Fae. And the particulars escape me now, but I really admired the writing in it. So.
And that's right. That's enough of that digression. Actually, we can go back. Right. Right. Should probably talk about. Well, that's it for the full normal stories.
Yeah. So we have disagreements or honorable mentions.
Well, we've got the conflicting view. Well, say conflicting of one, and then two honorable mentions. So let's do the conflicting first. We got The Blood That Pulses in the Veins of One by Joy Yang or
JY.
Yang?
JY, I think.
Okay. JY Yang. This was in the current Uncanny, and I'm not sure if I liked it. I just exactly, but I thought it was well written. I liked it. I mean, I suppose in a way I did like it, although it was slightly disturbing. You didn't like it.
I will give it this. It's interesting because it has an incredibly unusual perspective.
Yeah.
The position that the narrator in is unusual, creepy, and it turns super disturbing. That's why I didn't like it. I just got grossed out.
Yeah. For the record, because it's basically an alien. It's basically from an alien's point of view, as humans are actually doing an autopsy and chopping him up basically.
Yeah.
And he's mentally screaming in his mind as doing all sorts of horrible things to him, opening up and stuff. He's like, I mean, I think as I read this, I was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's actually going to be your favourite, because you're like, they're there, removing parts from him, and he's there screaming in his mind, in absolute agony, that the humans are just blissfully, they just think he's dead,
Yeah.
casually chopping him up.
Ugh.
It's like, yeah, this was interesting one. Not for everyone though, because it's a bit disturbing in that way. Well, let's do the honorable mentions then, might as well.
Yeah, talk about the Abercrombie stories. I'm interested in you recommending that one. We haven't talked about it. So.
Yeah. Tough Times All Over by Joe Abercrombie. This was in May's issue of Clarkesworld, which is what 116. This was just fun, frankly. There's some object you're never told what it is, and a thief steals it, and then another thief steals it from them, and then there must be about 10 different sets of individual thieves or thieving teams, and all stealing it, basically chasing each other across the city, one after another, stealing it one after another, each of each other, and it's fast paced and mad, and obviously the whole thief versus another half a dozen thieves is frankly really fun, and I really liked it actually.
Yeah, it's fun. I expect the people who love Joe Abercrombie are going to eat that story up.
Yeah, I mean, I've read Abercrombie as well. The first law, and I liked the writing style, but I didn't like the feel of it. But I did with this. This makes me thinking. But I will probably try Abercrombie again at some future point. Because
cool.
Especially if it's not this was fun.
My honorable mention is Cities of Emerald, Deserts of Gold by Sofia Samatar. This is a little story, not so much a story with a plot, but a series of reflections published in the online magazine The Revelator. I'll try to remember to put a link because I forgot this. It's apparently prompted by the question, as a Black person in the US, how would you describe your relationship to land? It's an incredibly quick read. It is probably the shortest thing we've mentioned here now that I think about it. It has beautiful writing. Samatar always has beautiful writing. And it does have some interesting reflections and comments about how you view land, open spaces versus cities, based on where you grew up and where your family's from. And I think it's supposed to come back to race at a certain point, but it was just very interesting story.
Yeah, this was the only thing I haven't read actually.
Yeah.
Although I do plan to.
Yeah, I will make sure to put the link in so people can read this one. And yeah, that's it for the stories. So what will we be reading over the next weeks? Well, I should first say that we'll have a bit extra time to do reading before the next live show. The next live show is going to be in August, and in about 6 or 7 weeks, the first Saturday of August, which should be the 6th, at our usual time. And then we'll be back to our regular monthly schedule. So what are we going to read over the next 6 weeks?
Well, same sort of things we've been reading. We'll both be reading Clarkesworld each month. Uncanny, because Connie seems to be really working out for both of us extremely well. So we've both been really impressed by that. Both be reading bits of Lightspeed and Tour.com. You've got Asimov's.
Yes, I'm really behind on Asimov's now. I will persevere.
We'll catch up eventually.
And did you mention Apex?
Oh, yeah, Apex.
At least the June issue of Apex will probably be on my rating list.
Yeah.
And I know I say this every time, but I'm going to try to read some stories from Strange Horizons. I have about a bazillion of them bookmarked, and I just never seem to get to them. But I need to read Strange Horizons.
Yeah, I keep bookmarking things from them, and then I get too many, so I just no, that's stupid, so I delete them and then sort of restart. Don't know why Strange Horizons, no, why not Tour.com or something, I don't know, one of those things.
I don't know. And the last thing that we will definitely be reading, we are going to be buddy reading this collection by Connie Willis called Time is the Fire, the best of Connie Willis. For anybody who feels like reading it too and wants to talk about it when we're done. It's less than 500 pages and it has, did we determine how many stories this has in it?
10.
10 stories in it, many of them award-winning. Should be very interesting to read. And I expect we'll probably get to this in July. Not the end of June, but probably July. Oh, hi, Caitlin.
Caitlin's doing something. Right. And that's near enough here, isn't it?
Yes, that's it. I think we've answered all the questions from the chat. We've talked about all of our stories and our next plans, so we're done.
Yep. We'll try to use the SF Shorts hashtag properly next time. Both of us basically forgot about it about a week after the last live show. Neither of us really thought about it for whatever reason. There you go. We're both going to try and actually make a determined effort to actually use the thing. Because I mean, that is the purpose of it.
We'll do better next time.
Yep.
So that's it for us. Thank you, everybody who watched and who talked to us in the chat. It's lovely to talk to you guys. And we'll be back in about 6 weeks to do it all over again. So,
yep. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.